Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. I apologize for the delay. It's 6:35 on Tuesday, July 28, 2026. Here at the Poetry Community Christian School at 18688 FM 986 in Poetry, Texas. I think our sound is going to be good here in the room. I can't say so much for the stream or the broadcast we're having. We're using the school soundboard, and every time we use it, we seem to run into challenges. So hopefully it will be good here in the room, but my apologies if you're listening online. I know that you're online. We'll pray that something comes through if we can. Thank you everyone for joining us here tonight. This is a town hall meeting, which, as you probably know, is a little less formal than our regular council meetings. And we're going to start off by having Secretary Laura call roll so we can establish that we have a quorum. Here. 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 Yep. Here. Okay, if you would stand and join us for the pledge and prayer for the hospitality. Here, do you want me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time to go. Thank you for the people that's gathered, that cares about this town, and those that wasn't able to come, Lord. We just pray your will over this meeting. We pray for your wisdom and discernment be upon us. We ask that you give us ears to hear what God speaks about, Lord. And help us to be good listeners tonight. Help us to consider everybody's thoughts and their process to their thoughts. And we just pray that we have a good meeting and everything brings you praise and what we do. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Mary? Okay. I feel David down in the sound, so hopefully it'll get better over the next few minutes as we get started here. We're trying to keep it loud because I know some people had said ahead of time they were afraid they weren't going to be able to hear us. So for those of you who have good hearing, our apologies. To those of you who don't, I hope you can hear us. Okay, so we do have an agenda, even though it's just a town hall, and we published that ahead of time as we were required to do. And so I'm going to start off by giving a little introduction as David runs back to the board to sound down a little bit. I'm going to do a little brief introduction to the citizen survey and talk about its relationship to the planning we're trying to do. So you got it, David?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know exactly when. It's been several months back. In the council, we started talking about the idea of long-range planning. And, the idea is we want to live as a town and as a town government more than just in the moment, right? We don't want to just be fighting fires. We want to have some idea, this council and future councils, where this town wants to go based on citizens' input, which is why we're doing the survey. And so we decided that the key to that was to get the pulse of the citizens, right? We've got a few of us in town that are especially handy with social media and a few of us that aren't handy with social media. And so if we were to rely only on social media, we'd get a little bit of an unbalanced perspective, right? And so we wanted to be a little bit more, a little more connected to all of the citizens of the town, those who spend time on the internet, those who maybe don't, and get their thoughts and ideas as well. So again, we came up with a survey. If you haven't seen it already, there's copies of it here in the room. It's online. It's very simple. And I know I've heard at least a couple of comments since we've had it out there. discussing it, that, you know, some feel like it's a little biased, and I guess, that's okay. It was intended as much as anything to help bring everybody to a common level of understanding, because I think in the 5 years or so that we've been in town, since we incorporated, there's been some amount of confusion as to exactly, you know, where the town is, and what it needs to be a town, and where ETJ is, and so on and so forth. So part of what we're trying to accomplish with the survey is to bring everybody to a common level of understanding, to know, okay, we're absolutely a town. We voted in favor of that. We set up our town government. We have a council and mayor and have had for 5 years and more. But, you know, we've got to talk about what our responsibilities are as a town. There's a lot of things that I and prior mayor and council do that really don't have a lot to do with the day-to-day running of the town, things that you probably wouldn't be particularly interested in, you know, federal government compliance, state government compliance, interactions with the counties. We've got files, forms, and papers, and all kinds of other things. And so we wanted to talk about those, the things that are meaningful to us as citizens, right? Things like roads, things like zoning, things like how we're going to fund our town, et cetera. And hopefully the survey is, you know, it is an attempt for us to get a little bit closer to that. You know, the point has been made by citizens standing up to the mic and doing comments a couple of times that, you know, if you do the math, it's a little hard to prove that we're going to be able to sustain the town over time financially. You know, one of the things that I think is commonly misunderstood is that our tax dollars that we mail to the county each month, whether you're in Hunt or Kaufman County, all stay in the county. Zero of that money comes back to the city of Poetry, or the town of Poetry. So you, just like me, write your check, I write it to Hunt County, because I'm in Hunt County. None of that money comes back to support our roads or to support any part of our town. When we incorporated, basically walked off from all of that money. And so if we were to try to get money from the citizens, it would come in the form of a property tax. And we're not here to discuss, and we're not posturing for a property tax. I try to make it clear that this mayor and council are not intending to pass a property tax. We're simply, and I don't think talking about it is necessarily a bad thing. I know some people get upset when we discuss it, but it's like not discussing death. I mean, it's real, and it's going to happen at some point, and otherwise we're not going to be able to support ourselves. I mean, bake sales aren't going to do it, fundraisers aren't going to do it, grants aren't going to do it. You know, we're going through our first grant experience, as many of you know right now, and we've been given the opportunity to get $750,000 from the federal government through the state of Texas, Texas Department of Agriculture, and that $750,000 is going to fix just a little over half a mile of road. And we've got a total of 32 or 3 if you include the state roads, 20 something if you include just the roads that we're responsible for. So at that rate, we have to get a lot of grants over a lot of time, and I just don't think there's enough grants out there for us to achieve that. And in the meantime, as we all know, our roads are struggling. Right? The roads are something kind of like paint on your house that have a limited life expectancy, and they're going to continue to deteriorate as best we can using our sales tax money, which is something we voted in, and we're going to reconsider in November at the upcoming election to try to maintain our roads with the help of the counties to give us a very affordable rate for their labor, equipment, and material. But it's not nearly enough to do the roads the way we need to do the roads. Like potholing is not going to do it. If you notice, depending on what road you live on, at some point, if we patch enough potholes, your road becomes kind of a bombing range. I mean, it gets pretty rough. And it's not that the potholes are not being repaired properly, it's that there are new ones popping up on a regular basis. So At some point, potholing doesn't do it, we've got to come in and do this other thing we do called level up. And, you know, that's fairly expensive, and we can't afford to do miles and miles of it based on what we bring in. So, anyway, all of that to say, we've got some difficult conversations I think we're trying to have now, and that are out in front of us. This council and this mayor didn't make these things up. These are very real things. These are very real issues. And I think it's important because we decided as a town, those of us who went and voted for the incorporation and wanted to be a town, I think it's incumbent on us now to come back and start figuring out how we're going to afford to be a town, right? And how we're going to do some of the things that we think are or are not important to being a town, like zoning, and like permits, and like, you know, other types of ordinances that we may or may not want to do. So, anyway, that's the reason for this survey. There's no hidden agenda. It's not a clever way to implement a property tax. That's not the end of the survey. The survey is simply to gather information so we can stand in front of you in a month or two and say, hey, you know, this many people responded to the survey. Check to make sure that they all know the poetry, so somebody isn't trying to load the ballot box. And here's the results. Here's what we think. Right? We've got lots of time to think about this. We're trying to get the word out as wide as we can. And we'll look at the data and we'll decide as a community, not just the six of us, but as a community, what we want to do with it. Right? So how do we move forward? So we want to try the grant. We want to try, I don't know, changing boundaries, changing maps. I don't know. There's just a number of things here that, if you've been tuned in for very long, are pretty challenging for us as a town government. So, anyway, I'll leave it at that and jump over to item 2. Oh, sorry. Okay, we've got some people that want to speak on the introduction. Good. Right. So let's see. First up, Scott Lady. Make sure the mic is on.
Hello. I would not like to say about the university, but I would just like to thank you, Mayor Jackie, thank you, Mayor Coach Bauer, thank you, Councilman Gibbs, thank you, Councilman Anderson, thank you, Councilman Bryant, thank you, Councilman Henry. First of all, for the job that you do, for taking on the job, because I know the pay sucks. And everything you organized the meetings that you didn't have to organize outside of regular meetings, put together a survey, you're asking for people's opinion, and that's important, and I wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate it. I would also like to say to everybody here, please take the survey. No matter what your opinions are, it doesn't matter, the survey is out there, these folks want to. And the more people respond to the survey, the better that data is, and the better decisions they will make. Thank you.
Scott, next up is Shelley Smith.
Okay.
Kevin Secretary. Carter Secretary. Paul.
So I do apologize just like Scott did on doing a survey. I welcome that. I've always been very big supporter of that. And we're happy that you're having this meeting. So thank you. I do on the introduction, you said something that I just want to clarify. See, Mayor Jackie made a statement that we don't receive any tax money for our taxes we pay to Hunt and Kaufman County. However, we do receive sheriff deputy services, emergency management services. We get the commissioners to give labor and equipment to our roads, and we don't have to come up with material costs. So yes, we got an ACH deposit into our account. We do definitely benefit from fire services, from all the services. So I think that's huge, and I wanted to point that out. I think that is a very, very important distinction. So.
Thank you. Interaction with all of those services. I will clarify though that our starting to charge a little bit for labor and other costs, kind of balance things out across everything. And those are through agreements we have with the county, which are purely at the discretion of the county. So if we suddenly get crossways to the county, all of that stops. They have no legal obligation to provide anything to us. They do it in a local agreement out of the goodness of their cooperative spirit. Robin?
Yeah, Robin Sullivan, I'm military. I just, same thing, I mean, I'm actually just so proud of y'all and thankful to actually that y'all put this together and put it out there. We tried to push the survey, you have the signs, which I have, finally I put one on our street. I mean, I'm just very proud that y'all really took a big step on making sure that you're getting to what we think, the things that we want. And so,
Thank you, Robin. Okay, I'm not sure, Laura, that we have item 1 and 3 on the speaking, but I think 2. Oh, we have that. Okay. That's where all we're from. Forgive me, my brain is still over fighting with the computer, so I'll show it in a minute. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 2, and I'm going to hand it over to Mayor Pro Tem Fowler, who's going to kind of lead the conversation from here. We will give people an opportunity to speak on each one of these items. We're going to have them up on the screen so you can follow along, and we'll just kind of work our way down.
Again, thanks everybody for coming out. So, we want to go step by step through the survey. We want to be fully transparent, answer any questions we can, just on filling out this survey. So if you have any questions and you're not signing up, we're still going to allow that. We won't get into the weeds of how this was developed or why it was developed, unless y'all are just hung up on it. We feel like this was a fair questionnaire to see where the citizens want this city to go. So if the vast majority wants to continue to grow the city and have city amenities, well then that takes money, and that's where the conversation came in with the property tax. So to Mike's point, we're not trying to be sly or slick, and we just ask that you ask any questions you have. So we'll start with the explanation of the town map. Our engineers jumped through some hoops and got the map pretty made pretty quickly, and Laura was able to get it printed. So this is a map from our engineering firm. It's not been doctored by anybody on the council or anybody in the city. What we have to do is to remove the EPJ bubble that we're so commonly used to seeing, because the vast majority of people ask about the map have no clue, and they think that bubble that surrounded us for so long is the actual city limits. What you're looking at on the screen and on this map right here, the red line, is the city limits. It is linear. There are no big parcel graphs or any of that. So if you have any questions about that map, I'll be glad to help. Any council member up here will be glad to help you. But that is our map. So even those areas in between the red lines, those are not city limits. It's not something that you'd be accustomed to seeing. So it is what it is. That's what we have to work with, and we just want to remove any questions about what our city looks like. So the EPJ bubble, even though it's still there, it's been removed for ease of conversation. You can see it on the right, the lighter shade there that kind of looks like a cloud. That's the EPJ, but it's not the city limits.
Sure, let's clarify. I know we've had a lot of discussion both in this council and prior council about the accuracy and precision of the map and surveys. This question is not focused on that. Like whether we think there should be a semicircle in the road or not doesn't really change the map for the largest part. So the impression we're trying to clear up here is just that unlike some other cities, I'm not going to say every other city, but some other cities, our city is not filled in. Right? There's a lot of open space between the town limits, and I feel like I should also clarify that I don't think, I'm not taking the position that that was done for any negative reason. I think it was done to be compliant with the law in Texas. It says if you want to form a city from scratch, you're allowed so many square miles of land, and in that square mileage, you have to achieve a certain population, right? And so because we're heavy agriculture out here, we got a lot of open land and no humans on it. And we need to, the people that put the county together need to collect up humans as they, achieve that certain square mileage or you can convert it to acres, and this is what you ended up with. So it's a little bit different, but again, this part of the survey is not intended to make any comments about whether it's a good map or you can find the survey points or any of that. It's simply to clarify that, as Terry said, all of that other area is ETJ. That's not governed by the county poetry. We don't have an authority in ETJ. We can't control development in ETJ. We can't act on all of that stuff.
And for the sake of time, I'm going to speak through some of these that don't need as much explanation. If someone says, whoa, spend a little more time there, we will. So there's 3 questions that ask the surveyor to answer, and we'll be happy to answer those with you if you need help. If the property is in, if you own or rent, you should be able to answer. If your property is in ETJ, we can assist you if you need that. And do you pay franchise fees? And just real quick, franchise fees are based on point of delivery. So for instance, our front barn is inside the city limits. We get charged the local franchise fees from FEC. Our house, the meter's on the back of the house, it's not inside the city limits, they do not charge. FEC is the one that discovered that law for us. It's a point of delivery law. So you may be in the city limits but not pay a franchise fee depending on where you're meter. The point of delivery on your trash is your road, or your driveway. Your driveway touches the town of Fort Street. Again, you're charged a franchise fee. So we can help y'all with that. That's a question for y'all to fill out. It's really not open to debate. We'll move on to question number 1. Are you aware that the town of Fort Street is approximately 622 feet wide by 27 miles long? And that's the explanation of the linear map. So when we say 622, there's areas that are wider and there's areas that are narrower. We got one road that's only 50 feet wide on either side of the road, so that's 100 foot flat strip. So on average, most roads are 311 feet on each side of the road. So that in combination with the map you're seeing and what the engineers produced should help you draw the conclusion that we are a linear city and not a sideways geometric shape. So from there, we're going to see people that want to ask questions or comment on number 1. Scott Lacey, who's first. Then Jack Mullins, Shelley, Ron Bowles, Tara, and Robin Baldwin.
Scott Lacey, 2426. I would really just like to follow on with what Mayor Jeffers said and make it clear that the town limits are what is shown on this map. I'd like everybody to understand that. I know you don't understand that. I'm trying to everybody in the sound of my voice to understand that. Outside of those limits, outside of 311 feet on average from the side of the road, and the town has no jurisdiction. And what, at least my comments later on this evening about some of the other things on there, I'd like to just point out that that has a heavy impact on any zoning ordinance, on any sales tax, on any potential property tax. It's a big deal with that. And I just want to make it very clear, the town has no jurisdiction over the ETJ, only within the strips. That's it. One of you gentlemen mentioned that there was some confusion about that map with the cloud on it. It was somewhat confusing. The original zoning ordinance was written such that it implies that the zoning can be applied to properties to the ETJ. And that's not true. And never was. So, thank you.
This is a point of order. Make sure, I'm not scolding Scott, but just remind you of it. Please make sure that you're addressing the council and not the audience. I don't want this to be a opportunity. Legally, it's supposed to be you addressing the council. So if you're trying to talk to people, do it while you're facing us and act like you're talking to us. So that we stay within the rules.
Jack Mullins, Phil Smith.
Hey guys, thank you so much for doing this now. I really, really appreciate it. It clarifies a whole lot. I would like to ask, which version is this map? How many times has the map changed since, incorporation? You know?
I don't want to go backwards, but this is the map that the engineering firm sent, the last one we had sent, all this was done in 4 weeks ago.
It's also the one that council voted on a year and a half, a year and 3/4 ago. So it is the official map. All we did is put TTJ later on.
Okay. And also, I'd like to put that up there, I think the 27 miles actually only refers to the amount of road that the county
That is
is
correct.
actually 6 miles.
75 and change.
Yeah, and then on the map that has levels on it, that one's not correct either, is it?
What part about it?
That all the ETJs have been removed.
They have not been removed, you are correct. You are correct.
Right. Thank you.
Ron Moore. Oh, thank you.
I know probably you were trying to make that question short, but, in actuality, there are roads that are 411 feet from the center of the road. That would mean some of those are 822 feet wide in sections, and then some are actually
I think I'm, someone was some small.
1,022. So just as a clarification, because
Not,
well, there was a person that was like, they were thinking that their home wasn't in it because it's back 411 on that particular road, they're 411 feet back. So just for clarification purposes, since that's what you're trying to do, I think it's important people know there are some roads it's 411, and then some roads, 3 of them I think are 511.
Point noted, and, I think to me, the salient point in all of this is that the town's boundaries are not based on the property boundaries. Right? And again, I'm not casting judgment, but it's not based on, most of us have a little bit of our land in town and a little or a lot of our land not in town. And so I think that's the point, it's because of the way the lines are drawn. And again, that adds to the challenge out there in Kaufman County. Kaufman County actually split their property a number of years ago, as you probably know. And so you have a parcel that is the part that's in the town of Poetry, and then you have a parcel that's not in the town of Poetry. In the county. It adds up to the property holders own, but they're actually carrying it on the record of those in Kaufman as 2 different parcels.
And I'm quite familiar with the incorporation document. Anybody in here has a question if their property is in or out, I will show the incorporation document for the office. Pretty easy to read. Ron Paul. Nothing? Okay. Question number 2. Are you aware that 95% of all parcels in the town of Poetry are not entirely in the town limits? They are split between the town and the county. In fact, what percentage of homes are only part in the town? Just a brief overview of that, it is the thin red line. So what that says is 95% of your property and everybody's property in this town have a line of demarcation that runs through it that's invisible. And that's the offset from the center line of the road that we're discussing. So if you're on 986, for instance, it's a 311 feet setback. Per the incorporation document, 311 feet from the center of that line onto your property in a town limit, town jurisdiction. You may own additional property behind that, and that's exactly what this is saying. 95% of the parcels in the town lie in the city limits and EJ or county, and so forth. And companies,
Well, I would add here, Terry, the reason that's important, amongst other things, is, and we deal with this, Dale and Tom and I, on a weekly, monthly basis, with people that are moving out, they're already here, and they want to put up a building, and they want to know, do I have to comply with zoning ordinance? Well, it depends on where you're going to put the building. If you're going to put the building at the back of your property, you've only got to satisfy the county's requirements, right, whatever those are. If you're going to put it up in the town of Poetry section, well, then you've got to comply with our current zoning ordinance. So, that makes a difference. And the good news is, if you own more than 2 acres, you know, the back of your property is probably in the ETJ, in which case you can pretty much do what you want to do. But that comes up a lot, almost on a weekly basis for questions about that.
I'm gonna change order on every set of questions, so we don't have to do this. Jack Long, you're gonna be first, Rose Smith, Ron Moore, Carr, Ron Farwell, and Scott Hanson.
I have a question. A good portion of our property is in a triangle that's unincorporated. Years ago, it was planted for home development. In the event that our family should decide to build that out, will those homes become a part of forestry, or will they be incorporated in the whole time?
Go ahead.
First of all,
Well, we can't force it with that. You can voluntarily. Yeah.
now, only the portion that touches the road, the center of the road, 301 feet inside that property line, if that is in the county, then yes, if you build within that 301 feet, you will be part of the incorporation.
Okay, not just a road.
If it doesn't touch the road, then it's fine.
Thank you.
Next is Shirley Smith.
Yeah.
Next is gonna be Ron Farwell. Sorry, second. Ron Farwell. Sorry.
Sorry for the family for legal issues. I guess the comment that I would make, that I would extend is, are you aware, the question says, are you aware that more than 95% of our parcels in town are not entirely within the town limits? And this means that over 95% of the parcels have some portion not under the jurisdiction of the town. This has an effect for zoning, this has an effect for taxation, and borders are difficult, right? Whether they're international borders, borders between states, borders between cities and counties, borders between cities and suburbs, borders are always difficult, borders are always contentious. The way the map is drawn, almost the entire town of Poetry, every property, almost, is a border property. When it comes to enforcing zoning, every case on those is going to be a unique case. There's not going to be any straightforward answer. So the administrative enforcement burden of enforcing the zoning ordinance, every question that comes up, there's no straight answer. Are you in the town of United? It just makes things very, very difficult. So I just would extend the question to Adam. Thank you.
That's everybody, and again, you want to speak.
Yeah, if you didn't sign up and you want to speak, just raise your hand. That's why you're here. Just tell us who you are and which town you live in. You don't need to list your address.
Don't be shy of different questions. One of the main reasons the survey was done was to inform and to kind of educate everybody on some of the things that we deal with on a daily basis, and just to inform you what's going on in our town. So if you're sitting there in the audience and you want to ask a question, by all means, raise your hand. We'll be more than happy to hear you out, comment, afterwards, or however you want to do it, fine.
But I will ask that, just so we get through the questions, for this part, make your question, if you have it, specific to whatever one we're on. So general comments will be at the end, we'll open the mic for that as well, if you didn't sign up for the call. But for this part, just so we can kind of get through these, keep it to whatever the topic is. That's it.
Further Thompson, that's what this is about. First of all, I'm in the area. Thank y'all for welcoming me. It's been great to live here. I'm with the beginning, so that's very welcome for both of you. My main question would be just because I don't know, what steps or who steps the boundaries, especially for who established that?
So when the town was incorporated, there was a group of people that had a petition filed given to the board for the town. In that, they followed the laws the state statute requires. For a operating town, we are now set how many people have to be in it and how many square feet you can have within the mile. And to my earlier point, the linear pattern was the best designed to be a operating town. So that was voted on in 2020, and it was incorporated, and it was followed with the county, it was over it, and that's the national organization. That's right. Well, the variance in the road was to change people's houses. So the first attorney that the group had told that the person's dwelling had to go to the city limits. So, for instance, my house is 511 feet off, so my road is 511. And then some are, one scenario is 100 feet, because it has to touch that house. So to reduce the impact in the using up the square footage, they made that section 100 feet and grabbed that house. And then another section that had been enlarged. That's the difference. That's why there's variance with that thing. And that's philosophy. We now know that any part of your property touches the town, that you're in the town and you're a voter. It could all be done different. This is a map we have. Thank you for coming.
Maybe what? I just want to clarify something that Councilman Bauer said. You had said about, and this is going back to reference to the question of who I am aware, but you had stated that your meter is on the backside of the property. It's not in the town. You're not being charged a franchise fee within the town you are. And you do know that in Hunt County with FEC and thanks to Councilmember Hitt for finding that. But us in Rockland County don't know that. It's not broken down on the bill from Encore. So I have 2 meters that fit in the ETJ. I don't know if I'm going to be charged a franchise fee. Betty Ballard, her house is back. She doesn't know if she's getting charged a franchise fee on her house. I mean, there's multiple houses that we clearly don't know. And we can't get the answer from Encore.
And that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wasn't trying to revert that, but that's the state law we've been given by FEC. And to your point, we had that conversation before, and it appears, and I'm not putting words in their mouth, it appears that it was excluding. So everybody in that area pays a portion more so that they can pay the franchise fee to the town. So I do appreciate you pointing my mistake out, but that was unintentional. So Kaufman County, if y'all want to rally to get on to answer some of those questions, I think the law is pretty specific to the point of delivery that they charge you the franchise fee.
Well, and just to maybe confuse you or unconfuse you, the criteria for determining whether you pay the franchise fee is different from the criteria that determines whether you pay the electric meter fee, is different from the criteria that determines whether you pay the sales tax fee, which is different from the criteria that determines whether you get the vote. Right? Each of those, the town council doesn't establish most of those. We did the trash one. We said if your driveway hits our road that we're responsible for, you're going to pay the trash can fee of $6.50 or whatever. But the comptroller and the other ones, those are all determined by them. We didn't have any control over that. So to Terry's point, if there's an issue with Encore, certainly we can get involved and train with you, but we didn't tell them to charge us and charge that. We didn't. In fact, as Manny pointed out, at the beginning, farmers came in and they just had a little broad brush, and it turned out they grabbed a lot of people that they shouldn't have, and we had to return some money and stretch it all out. Thank you.
moving on, nobody else on number two? Good. Number three, do you understand the town of Fortree's primary source of revenue or franchise fees and a 1.5% sales tax on taxable items sold in the town of Fortree? That also includes your online purchases, Amazon and others. So we have some budget people here and they can attest roughly $300,000 a year in gross revenues. The 1.5% sales tax can only be spent on the road. Period. In the story, the legal spend it on anything else. So essentially, we have what is it, $130,000?
We're running about $10,000 to $11,000 a month in sales tax.
So about 35 to 38% of our revenue stream goes to our roads, and the remainder runs our town. So, anybody have any? Well, we'll go down this and.
Well, to clarify what Terry's picking, so originally the council, this was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, voted in a 2%, well actually, we suggested and you, the citizens, voted on a 2% sales tax, which passed, by the way, but in one of our counties, not really Kaufman or Hunt, if you added up all the sales tax, it exceeded the state limit for sales tax. It's not allowed to go over something like 8 3/4 total. And so we had to revote that to 1.5%, which is what we're at currently. And that fits. Remember, we're in 3 counties if you count ECJ. We're in Rockwall, Kaufman, and Hunt. Our city or our town is in Kaufman and Hunt. But anyway, that 1.5 was all that was left after all the other counties and others added in their little sales taxes so that it wouldn't exceed the state. And again, as I said earlier, in November coming up, because every 4 years that has to be voted on again by the citizens. So we all agreed 3.5 years ago that we were willing to pay 1.5% sales tax. In a few months, we're going to all go to the polls and vote again, whether for another 4 years we want to keep paying that. And as Terry said, on the ballot the first time and on the ballot this time, it was very specific. It said 1.5% sales tax for the exclusive use of road maintenance and repair. We cannot spend that money on anything else. So that's what's fixing the potholes and doing the level ups on the road.
All right, so the order is going to be Shelley, Robin Bowles, Robert with Robin Falwell, not leaving General. Everybody.
So, dovetailing on what Mandy said about if your meter's on the backside and that sort of stuff, you got to charge. Unfortunately, even if your house is outside of the city limits, I'm still getting charged the full sales tax. And when I called the state and said, my house is not in there, take me off of that, their response was, save your receipt, and at the end of the year, you can get a refund. So people don't realize that even if you're not in the town, you're still paying it. So I didn't know if you guys know that.
Again, the town of Forestry did not draw that map. In fact, we asked in the early days of the town of Forestry, can you tell us how you're going to decide which home businesses and which people are going to be charged? And I don't know. This is my words. It was like there was a lot of hand waving. Like, I don't know, we just kind of figured it out. I don't know.
Robin Bowles.
Tarzan Shumpert, since you presented this as a 5 to 10 year comprehensive plan, I thought maybe perhaps a good question would be, hey, since our roads are funded by the 1.5% sales and use tax, what kind of future businesses would you like to see in the town of Forestry? And ask the citizens. You know, do you want to see any new business? Do you want to see these small type businesses? Do you want to ask the people? You know, because if you want to increase that revenue, you know, that would be very good for you to have small businesses perhaps in the town.
There is a place by the register survey.
So, there's a list of all the property taxes, all their property taxes. So what they did was they did a tax on property until they built up their commercial business. I don't know that we have a lot of commercial business that year because what they're funding is for your sales and your tax. It's all that kind of went on. So if you want to look at a pretty little town, how they did it, it's pretty.
Robin Baldwin. Scott Lee. Jack Holmes and anybody else.
Sorry, the town of poetry. I guess I've got a question, I think I know the answer, but I want to get it confirmed. The town collects the franchise fees from trash services and utility services of the 1.5% sales tax, and that is not a supplement to any funding that comes from either of the counties, correct? That is it, like the county. Right, that is, so the property taxes that the citizens pay to the county that they live in, those taxes, now you may get services for those, you may get, as this point out, you may get fire services, you may get emergency management services, but the portion of the property taxes that I pay to Hunt County don't come back to the town authority. I'm paid, the portion of my property taxes that pay for Hunt County roads, pay for somebody else's roads. Not going to the town authority, that's correct? Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on the topic?
Thanks for bringing attention to the Darrell Watson who live in poetry, on the county side. Due to unforeseen circumstance, I find myself in a position where God saw fit that I'm taking care of my wife. That being said, she doesn't have the freedom that she otherwise enjoys. She does a lot of her shopping for Amazon, for which she catches a lot of grief from me. That's between us. I love my wife, and I'm glad to see that part of that $10,000 to $11,000 that Councilman Fowler mentioned is because we use their services. There's not a lot of places to shop here in town. The ones that are here, I use them when I can. I'm not so opposed to home delivery as I was. So thank you.
Yeah, I think we can all set aside some amount of time to do it. Moving on to number 4. I do want to make one clerical before I get through this. It says 29 miles of road that we cover. If you look at the incorporation documents, they got private roads and state highways, we're the ones that want some change. Okay, so we didn't want to change anything on here because it's already printed out, but we're responsible for about 21 miles of road. And that takes into consideration the half road, so we don't count. If it's a 4,000 foot road, but it's only half of it, it only counts the square footage on that side of it. So just for clarification, I'm tricking anybody, that's about 21 linear miles. So the question for, are you aware that the town of Poultry's total income is approximately $300,000? This amount must cover operating costs, maintenance of approximately 21 miles of roads and bridges, future ordinance compliance with federal and state requirements, requiring insurance coverage, legal services, defense of town and legal matters, and other essential expenses. And I would say Tracy Bugger is the most in tune with our budget. I don't want to give a real brief summary of what I want to do.
So, you tend to be the best. You realize that when you operate on a very, very limited budget, it's only necessary costs. So we have insurance, that is extremely expensive. We have software. I mean, the list, anything, any utilities, salaries is a huge expense. So anything that you can think about in your household other than groceries, the town is paying that plus some. Mike made a comment earlier about all the stuff that goes on in the background that we don't really put it into, but some of that costs us. So we have legal expenses that we have to pay. Elections are a big expense. So this next fiscal year, we actually have 2 elections, one in November and one in May. So we have an annual fee of $734, and we have the election cost itself. So for those of you that don't know, the county takes all the small towns and divided the cost of the election between all the small towns. Our portion is over $7,000 per election. So that's a huge expense in election. What else? Ground maintenance.
We've got, and then I appreciate too, Councilwoman Gibbs and I, we did do the budget deck and then working with the rest of the council approval. I'm glad it came up because a lot of folks, they hear saying, well, our revenue and what the expenses, and as Tracy said, they're the top of the phone and the glass. But what we're also looking at is membership through county and state agencies that also help us and protect us in a lot of the issues as a town, and we do. One example is North Texas Council of Governments. It's the Council of Governments in North Texas. They're added out in the state, and what they are good for us, and this example was when we did the grant for the road, that information goes through POS, is what this North Texas Council of Governments POS. So every federal money that comes into whatever city or county is controlled and it runs through POS. So we became a member of POS, so that way we've got insight and we can make sure that we are properly handling our grants and things like that. Another membership that does cost money, but it's benefit to the town is going through PML, Texas Municipal League. Those are very vital organizations in Texas for us as well, because they can also help us with legal issues. We do try to have to focus on legal expenses for ourselves, house, if you will. So when things do come up that we're needing some legal advice, no better way is to get it for free than we get it from PML, and that's part of our membership that we pay on an annual basis. So really, and then she said our insurance is coming up. Well, we also found out that we were capable of also getting cyber, spyware. All the places around us have experienced that, and that is very, very costly to recover from that. And I've known cities that have witnessed that and experienced that. And basically, when you're talking of a town the size of Mesquite, Harrelson, or whatever, that have that, they take out all of their computers and they start all over again. You can imagine the expense of that. You may say, yeah, they've got insurance and things like that, but that's a small part of that. So, what we're trying to do is, spending our money, as you said, in the way that we can protect ourselves in the town. Thank you all for that. So, start with the citizens, with everybody else. Harold, Rumble, Carson, with Independent Bids, Bob Farwell, Scott Levy, Jack Morris, and Shelby Smith. Harold? And that's the money coming up. So that's a basic overview. $300,000, but we're taking $120 off the top. So we have $180,000 to do all the things that we're talking about.
Harold Watson, sorry for, I think I didn't introduce myself earlier. And I have to do much because I'm a little bit ADD and I get off in the field, off in the grass. But on item 4 here, this is in part misleading. The current Coffin County Commissioner provided a really fair and tremendous arrangement in that the town covers the cost of materials only. The county is providing the equipment and manpower to do the road repair. This eliminates the largest expense the county would be facing otherwise. Under previous administration of Terry Barber, that's not road, but he went left. Anyway, under Terry Barber as our commissioner, we were forced to supply volunteer labor from our own citizens. I would encourage council members to pursue, cultivate, and work fervently to not only maintain this sort of support and partnership with not only the current county commissioner, but even the future candidates for our state.
And I'd like to suggest that it's the council's goal is to keep the relationship solid. So to Mike's point, if the county can pull out of this agreement, we can whatsoever. Next up is, Ron Moore. All right, thanks, Chris.
Kind of poetry. You know, God created the family, the church, and government. In the family, the mom and dad have to figure out the income sources. In the church, you depend on the parishioners to pay a tithe. In government, you have to take it from the people. And so in this town, you know, we have a small franchise fee, but I, for one, have personally talked with several widows and widowers who are on a very, very tight budget. And so I think of them every single time when we discuss budget is we want it lean. In my book, I don't want bloated government. We want a lean government. When you get a bloated government, you're taking more from the people, and a lot of them can't afford it. And so, you know, yes, it's difficult. It absolutely is, and it should be. It should be lean, it shouldn't be bloated, because it's on the backs of our people.
Kevin, thank you.
Thanks, Rich. I do want to point out that the terms is not. And it's future next keep it that way. I see the mayor, council, parliament, council. Our calendar started 2020, and it's absolutely not in 6 months, not in 1 month, not 1 week, not 1 day. But the second one, the town's been in the light. It's fantastic. It's good. I'm the thought. I completely love nicely as my experiences with towns and cities. The more you got, the more you spend. The more you got, the more things you want to go out and buy and spend things on. Good example would be our closest neighbor. I talked to many people believe this, but just in franchise taxes, or I'm sorry, just in sales taxes alone, our closest neighbor gets $65 million a year in taxes. Just in sales use tax, forget the property, they have just in sales use tax. Yet they're $150 million. We're sitting here with $3,000 budget, we can find the second one. And we got land, we got town hall, and, you know, we need to support the donations, the, we don't just switch to volunteer, more of it. I, for one, and know others, definitely volunteer at home. And there's something that we could do to help with these potholes, so that's why we're going out. These other people have other talents to be able to help as well. So, again, solution guys, love you, doing great, keeping it alive, and let's keep it.
Yeah, and I would add into those comments. I mean, that is a very high priority of this council. By the way, we're going to have a budget hearing in this next month's council meeting, Thursday, so we want to see kind of what we believe the final version of the budget is for the next fiscal year. We're going to do it on this and provide comments. But, you know, having enough money to pay our bills and having money in reserve is a big priority of this mayor and this council and the past council. Take that very seriously. So we're not sitting on any projects that we want to do that we need money for. We're just talking about being able to maintain the roads. And I've said before, you know, when I moved out here, the roads of my property in Place 1.6 was rock, and I used to brag to my high-tech buddies in Plano that I lived on a rock road. And it wasn't too long after I moved out there, all the neighbors decided to want to pay it. So we just
Anyway, I like Rock Road, it's cheap to maintain, but most of the folks that live out here now are not fond of the dozen other things. Again, roads are expensive, so we're gonna continue to do the best we can with the county partnership, which is, strategic to keep these roads up. But I'm just telling you, and I shared this, I think, recently with somebody, if you haven't got out of your car and walked a section or two of our road, maybe you just now where you live, to see up close just what the pavement looks like, it's a little rough. It's not just dips, I mean, it's spider cracks and shattering and, it's kind of falling apart. So, and we're not gonna overspend to take care of that. We're gonna spend what we can afford. We did do the volunteer thing, but I'm getting the material cheaper through the county. They come to the truck and buy them shovels. That's way better than us getting out there and working best and, getting run over and all that. So I appreciate the willingness, and I know we will come together if we have some projects. I think for right now, the county is a much more cost-effective option. They can get a lot more work. I did a road the other day off 1565, 150 tons of hot asphalt. I mean, that would have taken us a long time to haul it. And they brought it out here an 18-wheeler, a motor grader, a roller. I mean, they had that done in half a day. So we're going to make good use of our money, and we're going to invest it where we need to without over-investing. If we only have
Rob, you follow up?
Scott Layton, followed by Jack Mullins and Joe.
Salary kind of policy. The park budget was $120,000 a year, with approximately $10,000 a month. So $120,000 a year is dedicated towards the roads. And roads, while I couldn't agree more that the bang for the buck we're getting from the county right now is fantastic. We are getting a smoking deal. But at the end of the day, the running estimate is that the roads cost $1 million a mile. 21 miles, $21,120,000 a year. I don't know how long that's going to take to maintain all the roads, but none of us in Michigan are going to be here by the time we get done. I just don't see the roadmap as so the way I see the roads right now is they're being maintained. We're doing the best we can. I commend you for that, but I think we are in what I would call a slow burn situation. The roads are not going to fall apart and collapse in an instant, but they are going to decay over time, and there's no real fiscal revenue solution to that I'm aware of. I can't see it. To the other part, the other $180,000 of the annual $200,000 budget, I would like to point out that everything in number 4, aside from the roads, which is operating costs, future ordinance compliance with federal and state requirements, requiring insurance coverage, legal services, defense of the county matters, and other essential expenses. Every one of those expenses serve to perpetuate the existence of the county. They are not providing services to the citizens. There's no ambulance service, fire service, they're providing sewer, there's no services provided to the citizens with that money. That money is used to keep the town in good standing in the state of Texas and keep it in existence. And there's not much of the money, and you guys are spending it very judiciously. I commend you for that. And I would like to also comment that I hate that, in fact, that the county compliance is amazing, and that's great. But there's not enough money. This is a long-term planning session. There's not enough money for the long term to maintain the roads like we need to do at this time with the money that's coming in right now. And those other things are not providing services to the citizens. The citizens are paid to keep the county in existence, but they're not getting anything in return for that. And I'll have your comments on that later. So thank you.
This is a follow-up from what Mr. Layton said. If tragedy struck our town for any reason, we would be out. If town hall burned down, we don't have the money to recoup it. Yes, we do have insurance, but that's not gonna cover everything at town hall. So, just be mindful of that when you're thinking about the budget, how we spend the money. Yes, we pay the insurance, all I could say, but that, if any of you know that if you lost a house or maybe a car accident or something, your insurance only pays so much.
Two points on that quickly. One, Scott mentioned $1 million a mile, just so we kind of understand the work that we're doing with the county right now. We're potholing and we're doing what's called level up, where we just put a layer 2 inches, 3 inches thick over the top, just to kind of smooth out the potholes. That doesn't cost $1 million a mile. What costs $1 million a mile is if you have to actually grind the road up, go down into the base, stabilize it with lime, put additional material down, and then come in with a new cap. Basically create a new road. Because roads have a limited lifespan, depending on whether it's chip seal or pavement, it's going to last 20, 25 years, something like that. In the start to fall apart. But the other thing, back to our relationships, and I think, being, sort of financially limited here, I think relationships are just so important to our future success. We also have an outstanding relationship with TxDOT. They recently did 1565. They're getting ready to do 986. Thank goodness those roads don't cost us anything. Those are state roads. But it's partly because of the relationship that we have with those people. They put the rumble strips on Dollhouse Road for us because people are trying to kill each other at the intersection there. Those guys are working with us as best they can. And I think that's critically important because I know from having lived in other places, if you upset your county commissioner or you upset your TxDOT rep or whatever, they can ignore where you live for a very long time and not get in trouble for doing it, right? So, very, very appreciative that TxDOT, along with the county, is partnering with us and helping us to, take care of large chunks of our roads. Jack?
Jack Mullins Portrait. From the discussion, it seems to me that it's only a matter of time, perhaps not our lifetime, for this summer, that we will have to see some kind of tax instituted. After 40 years in parish ministry, I've had many people come to me and say, well, I'm on a fixed income. Yeah, I am too. And the only time my income changed was typically if it changed churches. Most people are on fixed income unless you're on commission. We don't live on a sliding scale. Our income is fixed generally a year. For me, that has been a process of determining what we can do and how we can do it together. There's always a way. If we need to find some kind of sliding scale for taxation, council, whatever council's in place at the time, you can do that. You figure that out. Where we can maintain the services we have to provide and still minimize the impact on the citizens at the same time. Thank you. Okay, Julie? Anybody else?
Just go back to the, you talk about potholes and roads. We also have to talk about other infrastructure, bridges, culvert pipes. Those cost a lot of money. So I think it's a great idea of the road committee and bring the community together, but it's something. I mean, we're going to have to pay that one way or another. And as you go in the budget, I just like to say that you hope for the best, but you got to plan for the worst also. At some point, those are going to deteriorate.
And then also, I'll bring the attention of everybody here, because this bigger audience we don't have. In the council packet every month is a road report. It's basically a spreadsheet that shows every dollar we've spent on every stretch of road. You can see how much we spent on your road, how much we spent on culverts on your road, how much we spent. So you can see all of the breakdown. It's all, and we are working to distribute that around the town, right? My personal road is a train wreck, and I'm going to leave it that way because I don't want any of y'all accusing me of fixing my road. I'm deciding to discourage weddings around the corner, which annoys me. But we are trying to take care of the worst roads first. I know you may have a pothole in front of your house, but if most of your pavement is good, we're probably not going to be there compared to some of the roads. But
our same contracting, so you're talking about roads, in 2019, I had $2,200 worth of repairs on my cars, alignment and everything, because the road on 2326 was so bad. So, they've been much better over the last 5 years. I just have to say that partnering with the county, we're getting more attention to those roads, and so I think that's really good. I did find out, as of today, I know you've been talking around that $1 million per mile for a totally refurbished road, but I just got a quote from Ray Brumley of Exceed Engineering. His is $51 per linear foot, so that's $269,000 per linear mile. And that is with an 8-inch, they take the base, they take the 8 inches down, and they mix it with current cost today, as of today, with the concrete, and then they put, seal coat, with resist the water, and then they had about 2 inches of fresh new asphalt. For that road, it's $269,000 per mile, so maybe we need to talk with him more.
I appreciate it. And I also know that Mr. Monroe, talked to me today, Mr. Monroe said it's over $41 million, $500,000 a month. For them to do it, or $1 million a month as a contractor, as well as Mr. Wright. So we will bid that out.
Yeah, we're not doing any road rebuilding right now. We're just trying to get a feel for what the cost is.
So, I mean, that's a fourth of what was quoted. I mean, I think it's good to search around, certainly.
So for sake of time, y'all, to give you and y'all's time, I want to speed this up a little bit. If you got a comment that's similar to someone else's and you don't mind taking to the general comment, I would appreciate it. Some of these I think are going to be a little harder topics. So if we can move on to number 5, are you aware that the town of Forestry is currently out of compliance with certain state requirements, including maintaining the current ETJ map, an up-to-date survey of the town, question mark. The cost of the ETJ map is estimated by the town's engineering firm at $35,000. An on-the-ground survey of the town is estimated by the town's engineering firm at $350,000. I know we're fixing to hear a lot of comments about we don't have to do that, we don't want to do that, and all that. This is solely the price that we received, to someone else's point earlier. Yep, whatever's going to enforce zoning, you better know what those numbers are. If this council, well, not this council, I vote down every time, but future council enact the property tax, we better know what we've been legally taxed, and that is why we're on. We're probably going to hear that other counties have very few surveys. Yeah, because when they incorporated parcel lines. They didn't incorporate foot parcel. If we can keep it real short, Councilman Brown, you did the most of the work on this. Can you just give them a real brief overview?
Yes, well, we just recently, when we were 6 years old, we really don't know what all this road is, the map and the ETJ maps and surveys are going to cost. But we recently hired an engineering firm who's going to basically provide us the scope of work for that survey. And we're going to be able to tell them exactly what we need in order to do the job. Can we get a survey? Yes. Is it a survey that we can use to help you decide the cost? We cannot say putting your house in the town. Believe it or not believe it, we need to be able to have that information. So, we have third-party engineering firm that's going to do a scope of work. That scope will agree to the scope of work. We agree to probably 2 rewrites of that. Then that scope of work will be able to put it out for all of these different contractors that I was talking about, and they will give us a price to survey the town. And so that way, that's 2 engineering firms, $350,000, but we need a hard number, quite honestly. And for a 5-year piece of grant, obviously we can't do it tomorrow. This is something we're going to have to do over time. And the same thing with ETJ, the Senate Bill 2038, which allows you to remove the property from the ETJ. Very specifically, the town will immediately update the map, and we have. And I think we had roughly 3,000 acres removed from our ETJ, and we need to get to the bottom of that. what we're working on. We agreed to spend the money on the, scope of work, and at least we're gonna get that done this year.
So this time we're gonna go Robin Rose, think of it, Falwell, Scott Lee, Jack Mullins, Shirley Smith, and then anybody else.
And this is another financial aspect to this, is we don't have the money to do either one of these surveys, because that money is come out of the fund, it will not come out of the road fund. And to Mr. Bryant's point, this is long-term planning, so we have to at some point figure out how we can save money to get this stuff done. And it probably will never be this council, but it will be a council in the future that does it.
Robin Rose?
My question is, exactly at this time, why do we have to have the survey done? We have a survey that tells you how many acres we have in the challenge country and in our ETJ. Why do we have to spend the excess money right this second? Why can't it be a year from now or plan on a year or two being able to? If we can't afford to have the surveys done, why are we bringing it up right now?
I think you're helping. We're building a strategic plan on where we want to spend our money in the future, and we do currently have zoning laws that we will have to enforce, but we will need to know where those boundaries are. We're not doing it right now, obviously we don't have the money, we're forecasting, okay? And hopefully we'll get some numbers back that are not 350,000 when we write this scope of work. That's what we're doing. We have a zoning that we have to enforce at some point, so we need to know where the city's going to line up. We're not spending the money now.
And we don't know what to do now.
We can't be precise enough to tell someone if they can do something right here or right there. Our engineering firm doesn't agree with that. We have an overlay. The center lines of the roads are not that precise.
Okay, you.
So if you wanted to build a house on this property that you have, would you build it in the 300 feet, or would you build it behind the 300 feet?
I would go to the because I don't like being so far back that I have to know a half acre to 3/4 acre grass area.
Fair enough. There's a lot of people that, in order for forestry to be rural, like we want to have farmland we have, a lot of people don't want to build in the 300 feet. You would be an exception, and that's perfectly fine. But would you want to know if a thousand acres down the road wants to get the property tax? Would you want to know if your property is in that 300 feet or behind that 300 feet?
I would know before I built it because the city of the town would tell me I was in
And
that
how
area.
do they do that?
In order to consider the town, they give you this many miles, this many acres.
So how
From
do
this,
you,
from the center of this,
how do you measure acres?
the center of the road. You don't,
I'm not
road,
picking on
going down. No, I'm just telling you. You gotta be studied, the center of the road, 310 feet or 311 feet out is in the property area. You have that 300
But
feet.
in some areas, it's not like that, right?
No, some areas it's bigger. You gotta say, let it be bigger. But most people that have their houses built on their property know how many feet from the center of the road to where their house is, how many miles it is.
So you would be opposed to property tax?
If we have to, so we communicate with the city down.
Robin Caldwell.
follow or protect. So, just to basically restate the first line of the bond is that you are aware that the town of Hope is currently out of compliance with certain state requirements that has to do with the construction. So, I'm not saying yes, put it now, that we can be in compliance, but I'm sure y'all research what the penalties are for us being out of compliance, which is massive figures, and I'm sure none of these people realize what that number looks like. A lawsuit away, tomorrow. And how much that would cost us to literally bankrupt this town. So, my point is not to necessarily, I mean, you're gonna get bids, or smart, you've already said all of that. But I just want everybody else to kind of realize, yes, we want to be a small town, we don't want to be big, but when you're out of compliance with the state, and the state catches you, there's no back problem. So it is something that is important for our town to figure out how we can afford it, and get the kids and all that, so that we can get in compliance with what we really have.
Probably.
I don't know the answer, and I'm not claiming to know the answer whether a survey is legally required or not, but I would have to echo what Mayor Pro Tem Fowler said at the beginning of this question. If the town is going to approach citizens to enforce something, and Councilman Bryant talked about this as well. If the town is going to approach citizens to enforce something, and tell them what they can and can't do on their property, or where they can and can't do it. Or in future council, the taxation is an issue, and whether my house is in the town or not. Speaking for myself, I would need to know to the inch where everything is. Okay? And one way I'm gonna know that is using the district system. So whether it's legally required or not, I think it is practically required. And again, you use the comment along the way. Counsel somebody that they can't do something on their property, and it turns out that they could, or vice versa. It's a litigious society, folks. They're going to bring a lawsuit against the town because there was gray area. There was no survey to draw those lines permanently, and this is the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Jack Mullins? Joey Smith? Anybody else?
So on number 5, it says the town of Hope is currently out of compliance with certain state requirements. And yet, the other day, there was a post on Nextdoor that says that they say we have to have an on-the-ground survey. This is utterly false. Our attorney said our Stansfield newly engineered map is great and we all need. I don't know who's got another attorney, but she says this, and then the old former mayor steps up and says that this woman made no false claims. Which is correct? Do we need the survey? Or is the old former mayor correct?
We're not going to get into those details. I feel that the council has discussed, we feel that there needs to be a survey for a final line when it comes to zoning compliance.
So the old former mayor is. Thank you.
Out of this, we talk about our budget, and we're in budget, we force it, the budget, there are things that we don't have in that budget too, to give it about. And this is a classic example of those requirements that we have, that literally we don't have any money to put in the budget to pay for that. But we are dissecting the whole survey, we talked about some ways, we talked about last council meeting, where we could possibly shave $60,000 off that survey cost. Also, another thing to understand, we have a lot of private subdivisions in Fort. A big one, Grand River. you live on a platted lot, there is a recorded plat in the courthouse. Effectively, those pieces of poetry in a sense are already surveyed. And we can take those plats and give those over to an engineer or a surveying company, and they can take those and create a chunk of poetry. So again, you know, the whole thing is you can use an elephant as a bite at a time, and that's one way that we can get a big chunk of poetry done by simply surveying those areas already have a plan. And that'll be a way to move the process.
You know, what you're talking about sounds simple, but it is going to the courthouse and getting all those documents. Engineering firms won't do that. Will they? Yes. So, if we were to do that, most of us have to listen to work. And the town is only open 3 days a week, per hour. So, it's very difficult with the staff that we have to get those things going.
Maybe.
I have a question. If you own a house that is 1 foot, let's say, inside the town limits, and we do put a tax, property tax on, do you need to tax the entirety of that house? Or do you get a percentage of that? You get the 1 foot that's in the town. Because I know there's a lot of houses out there that are like that, they're split. I myself have one included. I think it may have 1 foot of the porch inside the town limits, but I don't know because we don't have it on the ground survey, it's not safe, it's just for my own measurements. So I want to know if you can tax all of it, or do you think that you let me know that?
Well, hopefully we don't have to answer that. All right.
Just one in the taxable area, there's a lot of municipalities that got houses that have county lines in the middle of town. So they pay one county one tax for their house and the other half goes to the other.
Well, I think we're better tending to go with the answer, we don't know. I mean, which is why we're not moving ahead on the property tax, because we'd be arguing with ourselves over where the boundary is. We don't know the answer to questions like that. Because, you know, if it's an overhang, it doesn't count as part of the perimeter. If it's got a post, it does count. There's all kinds of crazy rules that so no, we don't know the answer.
Charles, you've already passed, and I'll allow you to speak, but if anybody passes, we're not going to jump into the position and come back now. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, also, should address it.
Just address the council and the council, please.
All right, so, yes, the attorney said there was no need for the on-the-ground survey. There's no legal requirement for that, since that was brought up for clarification. There is no legal requirement for on-the-ground survey. When I called the city of Terrell, I asked them about an on-the-ground survey. They laughed at me. They're like, no, we don't do an on-the-ground survey. That would be astronomically expensive. What they do is when you have an issue or you have a finite question, they'll do a survey on that particular area only. So for a small little town, I think that why don't we look at that aspect of things instead of what you're saying? And then when I was doing, when people had questions, most of them weren't that hard. So, if they're at 200 feet from the road, that's pretty easy. It wasn't that hard. You made it sound like it wasn't hard. It's really, most of them are not that hard.
Okay, well, and we will look at every way we can. But, back to Terrell, they incorporated a parking lot, they'll go look at that yourself. If you see an addition, you also see a parking lot addition. And that parking lot, they didn't want to divide them. And as far as doing them here and there, all the car fees are a lot higher than what I think on the ground survey was going.
Yeah, and if we left it up to the citizens to provide the survey, that's costing the citizens more money when the town has the obligation to provide on-ground survey.
We may get back to nobody wants.
Right.
And just as a time check, everyone, we're at 8:05, we scheduled to go to 8:30, we'll stay a little bit late, we'll run to the table all night, so Terry's going to try to
So if y'all help me, 6, 7, and 8, if we can group those together, that are all about zoning ordinances. I'll be glad to read each and every one of them, but if we can just group our thoughts, I'll read them and then if you'll come give your thoughts on those, and we'll allow you a little time. Are you aware that down at Fortree has a zoning ordinance that regulates property owners, what property owners may and may not do on their property? Have you heard the current zoning? Have you read the current zoning ordinance, and do you have a reasonable understanding of its requirements? And do you support the current zoning regulation as it is? Out of all fairness, it's probably one of the most contentious ordinances we have, but we have it, and we are currently working with the volunteer committee. A couple council members, Councilman Anderson, Councilman Bryant, are working on making some provisions and listening to the citizens. So if we want to start taking comments on these, we're going to start this time with Robin Bowles. Your name's again Smith before you. So Robin, we'll start with you. Nothing. Carl, thank you.
Well, sorry, walking up, let me clarify too, that we had a committee looking at the zoning ordinance. They are not making changes, they're coming up with proposals to make changes. We will have to have multiple hearings with you and a vote on all of that. So don't think you're gonna wake up tomorrow and zoning ordinance together. It's not. We'll know way in advance. And it may not happen during our tenure. It's a fairly complicated process to change.
Poetry. I think it was back in January of this year, there was a survey, an anonymous survey, about how many acres Hilton Pot, you have like our current regulation is 2.5 per house. Trying to goal was, I think, keep poetry the way it is currently, when most of our acreage is 5 acres and up, and I think only 10% is non-conforming, 1 acre or less. So the survey was asking, do you want to keep it 2 acres and up and have a larger lot? And it was like 83 or 86%, something like that, I don't recall exactly, wanted it to be 2 acres and up. So I hoping that question would be on this survey, but I think that's a really valid question. What do the people want as far as their lot size? That's pretty huge. When he went to 1 acre, man, people were really up in arms about them. They were at 2, and then they went to 1.
Well, the current zoning is 2.5.
Well, the current zoning is 2.5. 2.5 acres for a lot size, for one home. So, that's, Attorney Berman wrote most of that, so, 2.5 acres. Well, non-conforming, to be conforming. Yeah, I mean, you can be non-conforming, but to be conforming.
All right. Next up is Paul.
Okay, so we all know how I feel about farming. I do it every day. Yes, I do love the fact that I come home in the country and I don't do what I do in the city. But I do appreciate some of the things that are in the zoning, and I think in time other people will too. I know we live in the country, we bought property to do what we wanted to do. It was probably a few years ago, we got married, and they built their house literally on a, and that's the right. But if that was in the town, we would have a little bit of space to regulate. Yes, that's better than on the fence. But hey, we bought that, put privacy fence, quarter mile on each side. Cost us almost $1,000, but whatever, now we don't have to look at. So there are little things that do make it where you would appreciate zoning. Other than that, honestly, I know having an ordinance, I know tweaking it, to present to y'all. It's going to be a long time for you to enforce, because you don't even have the staff or the people to even think about enforcing it. So, like I said, I don't mind answering any kind of questions that people want to ask me. Like I said, I know
It's not our specific, but I do know how Sylvia works all across the board along with property maintenance. And I'm glad to help in any way I can, council, and I appreciate y'all just giving us a chance to have another committee to be able to try and make it better for our citizens.
And we do want to thank you for your time on the committee. Scott Lee, Chief Grant Mullen, and Shelley Clement.
Start with you, town forward. Trying to answer all three of these together at once. With the way the map is drawn, in most cases, 311 foot strip from the center of the road to 622 feet, that's all that can be regulated by the town code. That's all that the zoning ordinance has any jurisdiction over. I don't think anybody's arguing with that. So what that means is that a developer can come in and buy a large piece of land, and beyond that, in most cases, 311 feet, they can do whatever they want to do. The town has no jurisdiction over the ETJ. However, most citizens don't have that much land, right? Most people don't have enough land that developers knocking on their door and sitting in their little parks and trying to buy the land. So the zoning ordinance is letting the developers behave in an almost unrestricted way. In the 311 foot strip, they can put their water fountain or their rock garden or their big sign that says, poetry acres or whatever you want. But beyond that, they can put in as many houses as they want. And we can waive the zoning ordinance at them all the time, and they're going to laugh on it. But the citizens are the ones being restricted by the zoning ordinance. They're the ones that have to come and ask for permission to subdivide their land, to put up a shed, or whatever it's going to be happening. And I believe that is the opposite of what everybody wanted the zoning ordinance to do. They wanted the zoning ordinance to keep the developers out, to let the citizens do what they want. And in fact, that was stated at the meeting where the zoning ordinance was passed. And we're having the opposite, this is going to have the opposite effect. Number 7 talks about a reasonable understanding of the ordinance. Once again, I got to go back to the map. The map makes it very hard for it to be reasonable. If a citizen owns 20 acres, but only an acre and a half is in the town. So are they ag? Are they single family? What are they? How is this interpreted? And that's, once again, that's derived from the way the map is drawn. And I would also say, and I don't want this is not a personal comment about anybody sitting up here. You guys don't have the resources to enforce the zone. But right now, it's being unevenly enforced in a way that I feel is unfair. Someone who's trying to do the right thing has to jump through the bureaucratic hoops, has to come to the meetings, maybe they get denied, maybe they have to appeal. Meanwhile, someone who's not interested or is unaware, they're doing whatever they want, and there's no way to. Now, again, I want to make it very clear, that is not a criticism of anybody, any of you sitting up here. We're only spending hours a day, and zoning ordinance isn't exactly easy to interpret. However, that's not a sustainable situation for the long term, and it's not fair to the citizens. So we're not restricting developers, we are restricting the citizens who are trying to comply, and the citizens who aren't trying to comply and are soft-lying the ordinance are getting away from it. So I don't know that it's doing much level. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. James Mullen, Village Commission, I just want to be super clear. The ordinance is passed and posted on the website under SF, minimum lot size $43,000 That's 20 acres.
So that's what you need to set by the county. Is that right?
That Mullins Poetry, I imagine that many people who have bought houses, even in the large side developments and purchase, were living under some form of restrictions when they bought the property. They may or may not have done it, but they were basically living under some zoning ordinance that was imposed. If you try to sell a plot of land even before. Kaufman County limited you to a minimum of 1 acre if you're going to be on septic. So we've always had some form of zoning, regulations that we have to be followed. And I agree. This made it more formal. This made it where people shouldn't ignore it or pretend they didn't know, because it's in everybody's place, unfortunately. This doesn't bother me, so I tend to not worry about it. Just abide by what I consider to be common sense approach. Like I know we don't have people that do that, or probably fewer that consider my approach to be common sense. But I hope we don't get found down in the commission what we can and cannot do with working from home. One thing I would hate for the town of working to do is to become simply an extra large HOA.
That's so good.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I noticed, several backgrounds of several buildings infractions that are taking place as this is going on. And this is here, the zoning. And so what are you going to do about it? You're not going to do anything about it. I don't know. We moved here to not have a lease, to live in subdivision, because here we are, getting rules pushed upon us. I don't want it, I don't think other people want it. To be honest, I think the zoning needs to be covered up the zoning trash.
My name is Tim Curtis. Terry and I have chatted over recent meetings. I want to go back and make a comment or two about the survey. Think about pickaxe mountain, I'm sure you've seen on TV. To drop a bomb like they drop, their accuracy has to be within 7 meters. Less than are you aware that the United States military has areas of every part of the United States? And that includes where we live. Those areas were made for the military primarily. However, the big city, like Dallas, then for the highest for the country, live in area. That area will then can be counted in a way that you can be certain either of this. I'm retired and I lived about 20 years because I really do. We did everything we guys trying to do. Being in a position, it's hard. It's hard. Anyway, we were at a company that, not my company, but one that I worked for, to put from coast to coast, every major city wanted fiber optics. There's no way in the world that you can do that without 7-meter accuracy. Now, we've come a long way with GPS and all that other stuff. It is not 7 meters. So what we did, we pulled areas, existing areas, from every area we could get. Now, some of these areas are certain heights, other lower heights. There's a lot of involvement there. And I don't know whether a lot of details. All I'm saying is we placed fiber from the Pacific to the Atlantic with 7-meter accuracy. And most of that was done by engineering companies that never were on site. So what you do basically when you get these areas, You do have confirmation by something sitting on the ground. And you measure a point there, or a corrector area, and all of a sudden, you're going to get down to something like that. You can do that, and you can do it without a ton of money. And the place to start is pull the aerials together. Take a look. See how much has already been, what you actually need is intent going for the area. From that, you start running information down into the city. You look and see what the city's doing. And they'll do some changes. But I'm saying that that's not, you haven't started yet. You need to look into it, and I think you'll save yourself time on it. And I think, everybody will be, nobody's going to be totally happy. Terry Luke, the players around you to the screen. You know that. That's the way people work. But anyway, I just say that without taking more time. I know we're all in a hurry, but there's data out there. I'll be glad to but again, I must say, we will be in our 3 years. We live a lot of every year. We don't have a utility over $100.
And you know, the point I would make, I appreciate everything that's been raised, is the challenge we have is we don't know where the town line, we know where the property lines are, we don't know where the town lines are, right? Because they're based on straight lines, pointing in from the and where the center of the road is, and you may think you know, because you're driving on the road, but if you look at the survey, that's not where it's supposed to be. So, to this point, you could be on, you wouldn't like to drop on the road based on that. You take out one.
One nation, here 916, County Road 2326. While we're on this bill, this property line minutes, this has been going on ever since the United States started. More battles have been fought on the property line than any other thing in the United States. We need a physical survey with a pin driven at the corner of every part that you need to do. There's nobody that's got any business in the town that's going to run out here and buy a piece of property without it being staked by the state. Not by some idiot because they put it on the state. Not somebody you can pick out in the South Territory. Another thing I want to bring up that I'm not going to speak. Everybody knows I don't know how to speak. Another thing I want to bring up is you talk about these roads. Someone said that 51,000 feet of road, 5,280 feet in a mile. That's what it is. Well, that just brings it up. Part two. The first thing, if you're going to get on these roads, it's not about the top of the road, it's about the whole road from property line to property line. You can't build the road if you can't get the water away from it. You can't build the road, you can't get a base on it. Some of our roads, the ditches are higher than the road. And the water line don't have no road. Another thing is, they talk about that $1 million a mile. I doubt if you could do it for $1 million a mile. If you have all the expenses that go with it. You've got to build that base. You've got to do the drainage work. It's not just about the bar ditches. It's where the water goes after it leaves the bar ditch. Takes a tremendous amount of money. And so you've got to have a lot of give and take on that. It's amazing to me about the things that's been done in this little town that we got. There's more hard feelings on it than it has any other thing that I ever was involved in. First, one thing I want to leave you with is if you can't use common sense, when you get to the point where you don't
common sense. Nobody uses common sense in this world anymore. It's just amazing to me what our country is going down. Thank you.
Thank you. I really missed Robin and Kevin Davis. Y'all want to speak? Kevin, Robin, would you like to speak? Yes, ma'am. If we, I think everybody wants to get to 10, and we're short on time. I'm gonna read 9. If you have a comment you need to make, if we can make it brief, but I think everybody wants to spend some time with them. So, 10, are you aware, we've kind of already went over this, are you aware if any portion of your property is located in town extraterritorial jurisdiction, and the town has very little authority to impose any regulations or controls over what can and cannot be built on the portion of your property? And that's kind of been the dominant theme of the property lines, and after the town, that starts ETJ, so anybody needs to know. I've got people on here, you want to pass that, we'll move on. First, Robin Paul, Robin Bolt. Tom Lady.
I'll do relatively very quick. I'd like to extend this question of what can and cannot be built on that portion of your property. And I'd like to just point out that if the property sell, I just did a half an hour of looking on the internet, so this is not a comprehensive list. But in Hunt County, I found 40 acres, 221 acres, 190 acres, 38 acres, 34 acres, and 169 acres. These are properties that have a portion in the town, but that's the part that's in the ETJ. I mean, Kaufman County really quick, 78, 70, 198, and 48 acres. These are in Kaufman County, as you say, you're based factoring it out, that's the part that's in the ETJ, not the part that's in the county. The zoning ordinance has no, are you aware that the portion of your property is located, et cetera? Yes, I am aware. All those acreages that I listed after a quick search, town has no authority over it. I'd just like to point out, if anybody knows where the Wildwood development is, which is on Forestry Road, it's in Rockwell County. I just drew a square on Wildwood in county houses. They have 166 houses in 28.4 acres. Okay? I don't know what the zoning ordinance is for if we can't prevent 166 houses in 28.4 acres, when there's all those acreages that I found that anybody can sell that tomorrow and sell it to the developer or whatever developer they want. And it can go in, and there's no, the zoning ordinance has no authority. So when you say, are you aware? Yes, I'm aware, and that's from the possible. I don't want to raise the book again, but that's from the possible consequences of that. So thank you.
Jack Morgan? Shirley Smith.
Pass.
Anybody else can put on that? Did I leave you? I did, sorry. All right, thank you.
You keep saying that there's absolutely nothing we can do about fighting for development. I think our attorney has said that because of the driveway clause, the first 311 feet does belong to the town. We do have some say on the entry. So the driveway clause is actually very powerful. It says a driveway can only go to a home or it can go to an agricultural building. Now, I don't know if he's, has a different thought on that now, but he said that it was actually very powerful. So for him to say that we have actually no, we do own the first 300, 411, or 511 feet in the town, so we do have a say on what actually goes on. And of course, in the ETJ, then that's subdivision regulations by the county, so they still have to meet those requirements.
Thank you. Question number 10. Town of Forestry does not currently have a real property tax mechanism in place to assess or collect property taxes. There's an ad valorem tax of 50 cents per $100 of taxable value. Where implemented, the additional annual tax may be calculated as follows. You can see the chart, there's basically a $500,000 house, it's gonna cost $2,500. $1 million house is gonna cost $5,000. The total taxable value of forestry, of property within the county of forestry is approximately $173 million. That was obtained from the county, that's not a made-up number. It is last year's number, but it is accurate. At a rate of 50 cents per $100 dollars of taxable value, that generates $865,000. Just to let you know too, that $173 million is already washed and scrubbed. If you have a over 65 exemption, if you have an ag exemption, that is the true taxable value of the property inside the town of forestry. And then it goes on, it's up for debate, but the cost of rebuilding a mile of road. Only thing we're going right now is we're trying to build a half-mile road and it's costing us $750,000. So essentially 1 year's worth of taxes would pay for that. Giving you above information, how likely would you support an ad valorem property tax of 50 cents per $100 of assessed value to ensure the town is adequately funded and in the foreseeable future? Only thing I would add is there is some uncertainty. Mike made a great point. We do not know yet. We've heard if anything touches your house, to have the ability to assess a tax on the full structure. And then we've heard that they can only do the portion that it actually touches. That won't be for this council to decide. That will be the tax assessors and collectors that decide that. This is just to inform people of what that looks like if future councils want to do it. And I think what's important for citizens to know is this is a very disproportionate tax. We have elderly fixed income, and the Jack Mullins point, everybody's done on the fixed income, but some people are 100% of the town. And they're going to carry the burden of 100% of the tax on their property, where larger agricultural properties with their highest taxable valuable assets is sitting behind that line and for sure won't be taxed. And then they have ag properties, so they can pay mere pennies on the dollar compared to those who are fully inside the city. So that's full transparency. We're not sitting up here trying to hide anything. Some people will bear a higher burden even though the tax rate is the same across the board, if it's ever.
So, I think for me at least, the value of this question is being a town and being a part of the town of Poetry worth you having to pay anything. Right now you pay a little on your trash can, you pay a little on your electric bill, and I just think for us and for you, for council, it's important that we understand what the temperament of the community is. I mean, I'm one of those people, I'm on a fixed income. Nobody's increasing it, and I'm, living out the last years of my life, and I have genuine concerns that I'm going to be able to afford to live in my property, a property that I've owned cash-free or debt-free for years, but the county continues to levy more and more taxes. They went up this year again, it's always do. And at some point, it's going to get really expensive. So when I want to pay another $2,000 so I can say, I live in town culture, I don't know, that's a lot of money. I mean, I like being a community, but, we don't have a lot of city services, we don't have a lot of things going on. So I think it's important that this council and future councils understand, listen, we've talked about this a couple of times, and I mean, Robin said keep paying back, but I don't know what the rest of you are going to say. I think we need to know that, because otherwise we're wasting our time. This is not a council, this is not a mayor, and I hope that we don't have a council and mayor anywhere in the future that are going to just come in and say, you know what, we know what's good for you, and we're going to do it, and we're just going to sit down and deal with it. That's not how we want to operate. Right? We want to kind of be a community, we're going to work together. And again, my vote would be, let's let the roads go to rock, we'll just line them up, it won't cost us a lot of money, we'll play them 4 times a year, and we'll say, turn them on. You're going to have to increase your air conditioning filter purchases and car washes and all that. We just want to know what's the feeling of the town. We've never really sat down and had a conversation across, and if we have a huge turnout of this survey, it's still only going to be a small part of the town. Right? We've got a couple of thousand people in the town according to PML. I mean, if we could get a few hundred after the survey, that would be good, but that's still only a few hundred, but at least it gives us something. Right now, we don't know, and we don't want to impose our will on 2,000 people because we think it's a good idea. We want to know, listen, if we got backing here, it's not about getting elected or re-elected, it's about what's good for the town. We live here too.
So we have quite a few, trying to speak on this. And I was fair that, maybe or those who been speaking on the other ones that didn't get a chance to speak, don't want to go first. Okay, we're gonna follow the list then. From volunteers first, y'all kind of know that we're up there, so I'll let you get more insight.
Pass on me.
Okay, I will.
I mean, I do understand that in a way, yes, the tax would help us pay stuff for the road and all that. And for me, it wouldn't hurt us at all. I mean, our house is back a half a mile from the road, our meters half all the way back there, it would just be the front part of the grass. And we have ag, and so it would be nothing. So for us, it would be no big deal. But then, like you said, it's a tax that's not fair across the board for everyone that is part of the town. And so that makes it very hard and difficult because we know that we have to have a way to finally have some kind of revenue to reduce that, which is seriously gonna, really hurt a lot of people that have that house or a structure in there. It's pretty good value. And depending on what county you're in, if it's more expensive or not. If it's often is higher than time. And we pay both. So, I mean, there's really no way around it. At some point it's probably going to happen. If we continue to stay at home, that's eventually going to happen. But unfortunately, I mean, that's hard for me to say, but I know I work with the big city, I know how it can be great things for us eventually to take them. But there are so many people that I know that it's not hard, which is, makes you feel very neutral about it. So, but, good luck to y'all getting this all.
Thank you. Scott Lee? Kelly, we have one.
Probably brief. Start with you, Cool. I myself would mark strongly opposed on survey to property tax. There are people that would strongly support it. Everybody has an opinion, and that's fine. But I think that at the base of everything, consider the point, property tax, no property tax, yes or no, it lands a certain way, and that's what happens. But we all expect it to be a fair pool, right? And you guys have both, you said the word fair. The way the map was drawn on the linear map, which is the best name I've heard for it, not drawn on parcel lines, it's drawn on measured distances from the center of the road, that makes it not fair. I can say the same thing that we always said. I would pay pennies in property taxes. My neighbor across the street would pay thousands of dollars, but we would get the same thing. That's not fair. That's just not a fair share. That's just not, I can't support that. And, it comes from the limitations of the map. Thank you.
Bill White. Followed by Jim Smith.
Taxation is not a popular subject for anyone. While it can be a necessary reality, it can easily turn into a massive burden that is prohibitive for the people. In our case, it can take a really lopsided and unjustified slam on select persons. For starters, there are citizens who cannot afford it at all. These cases may be elderly, widows, and medically challenged with ongoing medical expenses, or just plainly making it from paycheck to paycheck. To move on to discuss the example of the taxation formula, I'll reiterate. The citizens already pay taxes that are significantly higher than many. Those tax dollars are already there to serve those monies that are already allocated to the road and bridge districts to do exactly what we need them to do. It's in my opinion, health taxation to consider paying taxes to the county that are for road and bridge repair and make citizens fork it out in another form of taxation for the same exact thing. Sounds like taxation without representation to me. We have an elected commissioner who is meeting us more than halfway by providing manpower and equipment. Furthermore, I state this. While I'm not an attorney, I must say a real property tax assessment for each and every landowner would be impacting those homeowners whose home is actually within the 300-foot mark in a much more adverse manner than those homeowners whose homes are situated outside the 300-foot mark. I, for the life of me, cannot imagine taxation for a property that is not in the town and would strongly be inclined to pursue legal remedies to defend myself. At the same time, however, those homeowners who have their homes inside the 300-foot mark would be subjected to an unfair taxation. Those people, in my opinion, would have a great legal argument in their own right. That being said, I'm somewhat pleased that I did not self-annex my entire property into the town to start with. Sure, I may be wrong in my opinion on how the property values would be assessed and who would be taxed or not taxed, but I will close with this. Poetry is a rural community. Survey of this agenda seems to further solidify my belief that there are some here who would rather bankrupt the people of the town and open the borders, so to speak, to whoever wants to take over and cash in while doing so. It's not the rest of the survey, but on the ground survey would be a horrendous expense. Carroll City Council admittedly haven't done one for Carroll. Let's manage our affairs and stop looking for ways to run things.
Thank you, Mayor. Tim Smith, all by roll call. Tim Lee, Ron Bolt, all by Paul, and Kevin, Paul. Okay, let's let the others go. Yeah. So Victoria, Kevin, Alan, Witter, and then,
I am strongly opposed to property tax. I've been there, for many reasons, but I feel like in 23 years on my road, it's 2326, which is one of the longest and most traveled roads in the town, it has not been refurbished completely. So, the leveling up that's been doing, it's been doing just fine. I don't really want Christine Road, honestly. I don't, because then you're gonna have a raceway. And then we're gonna need law enforcement. When people are racing, speeding on a road that's only supposed to be 35 miles per hour. So, it's a country road. I'm fine with that. So, I also think, pursuing more grants, having a lean government is what we need and what we want. So, and being very frugal of what we do have, I think, it's pretty well enough.
Kevin,
I'm opposed to these just like to bring out, you take that 2326, go do it, full money, and we're going there, all the way to the cemetery. So, in 2019, there were between the whole town, between 400 and 500 potholes in that road. I counted. I was to go around trying to fill up the biggest ones with concrete, so I was actually counting. I counted them today. Guess how many holes we left off 2326? Did we look hard? Do we need to get sure that it should be dug out, there's some maintenance needs to be done? But today I counted the holes. There was less than 50. 2019, 400 to 500. Today, less than 50. The road's better condition than it was in 2019. We did it in a fast town. We have to go out and spend millions of dollars going through the red. You guys are doing a fantastic job. Keep doing what you're doing. I think that we can, our town was started on the pretense that we were going to try to avoid property taxes, struggling to enforce the property tax. You guys did a good job. Keep us in the line.
just keep us moving. We don't need any kind of expect any kind of services from this town, or we will community, and we don't need sidewalks, we don't need city managers, we don't need all that much money, and then support local zones that we have. But we certainly don't need more, and then, just, you know, guys who want to keep towns, or cities, and state taxes, keeps,
Alan Witter?
Everybody, I'm a big news poetry, but I kind of been all over the place. I'm not even sure what to talk about. But it comes to the tax side of it, but I'm also tired of being county tax year 20 years. They're not supposed to know, probably the best maintained road in the city. And it dealt with that. Anytime locally and local law, and I was happy to share that with you sometimes. I paid for the tax, I paid for the taxes, all that. I do nothing. So I guess my frustration, not knowing what things can do with my frustration is on the tax I paid to people. So in my gift pay tax, this thing something that I need to work it out of, and not very much do dots, cars, or speed. And once they pay that dirt road, that became dirt road, right? And so now you got these clients, the dodging property, you dodging the road, they're trying to try to file some of the new road. They want to, seems basically that doesn't know something. Top Canada decision there, Rockwell, so, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, in supporting something that helps, we don't have to do something about it. I mean, something that my property in the city, some golf, the tax, and I don't know if there, I found one of this before, but if you there, you see, very important to tell you something. Poetry Road, you had some traffic on the local town. Well, 30, 40, 60, you can be a kind of a track. Take it out. Yeah, it was dirt, it got luck, now it came up, and then it got paved, and got so there's a point where we can give some help to the state because it's another criminal story. But if you pay it, now we lost it. Because we need it. So there is things we can use to help the state. So you think of the responsibility that road in place, that's paid. And in 40 years, we just got to pay that. That's easy. I think for us, any county or the access, you pull up, not just to the right to the left. I have gone to the sea right now. 300 so I'm trying to figure out right on the road, I'm going to 5 miles an hour on the trailer. Bouncing up the road, trying to put it on. It's very dangerous. So it came in down, slowly, you know, still being safe. Pay tax, I say no, I want to pay this tax, I want to pay tax for something.
We have, by the way, raised the issue with the state of taking over Forest Road. They said sort of lighthearted one time, if we take over 1565, they'll take over Forest Road. Of course, we're not going to maintain 1565. So, but we're involved in the Rockwall Transportation Authority, and brought up there a number of times. We've been county road, for the farm market, it's a connector, it just makes sense. So I think it happens. They're under no obligation, and it would be years out. The TxDOT's budgeting process is 10, 15 years out. So if it happens, it's going to be right away. But yes, we certainly made that point to be really
Members, anybody else? Yeah, the post.
Okay. I was not on Portugal. I died. The road was terrible. I can't walk. I can't walking. And I'm saying this all the time. I moved out physically, purchased the property in 2001. I built my house in 2008. Physically moved in 2009. I have sat out here and watched Fortune Road become a speedway. We cannot even pull out of our driveway. We can't even turn on 243 because of the trees and everything. The road has never been completely redone. The whole county is there. Now we have a big subdivision down the Conklin Gate. And the probably new subdivision going down the other end and Conklin County, where they don't know where people are. That road is a connector from 34 I-30 and on the I-20. So in our future planning, we need to be able to address that road. It does not have a face. A few times that I've seen my son have working on it, it doesn't have a face. It's worse than what rock road was over on. I cannot drive down or even ride down myself on 25 years. The road is so bad. It kills my back. We drive maybe a block to get out on another road. There is no police officers out there. There are no services out there. There can be an ambulance. That's so bad. And a lot of 18-wheelers come up and down. They don't go slow. They are speeding. And we came out and a horse was running out. Luckily, the horse stayed outside the fence. The car that was behind us was in front of us. She was a horse. And we stopped. The guy next door was a long one. He had shut his gate. His property was every house. So all of his property was just a little bit there and high on the road that was our zone to be flat. He didn't just say okay. He had little cattle trail things. It was long ones that right across it, taking out 5 times. And they come in on our property. Our gate wasn't open. And there's no one yet to come out there. 3 times people have stopped. I thought, it's long one, it's this. And the property that we bought next to that sits far enough back that he's not even on the meter. There's nothing there to stop that money. And let his house go out and come. So we sit out in the evening and you can start, my husband told he was just a 15-year-old. We sit out there and we just watch how fast those cars are going down that road. They're still moving, and it's worse because there's so many cars coming from tornadoes and speed through there. There's no stopping.
So, very effective the topic though, so this one is for, would you be in favor of a property tax?
No,
If it would help the road?
no, sir. The reason I would
we have the people, like my house, I wouldn't be changing it. I would put on the road. Down this street, very well. This is, almost the only building. And the other house is one almost off the road. And then keep going on down. How it's a farm about the, if you get up here in the middle of the town, there's a lot of people that live on this side.
Let's wrap it up.
In the long line of homes, that's the really, and we do that, because, and I know, I'm not, I know that. This is a lot of things happening, and a lot of young people.
Thank you for your comments. Well, and I will say, that road is a little bit, like our zone road, it's a little complicated for a lot of reasons. Not the least of which is, the technology that we all carry around in our pockets these days is contributing in large part to the traffic, right? So if you use a crowdsourced app like Waze to navigate through town, it's sending the traffic this way because it's the shortest way to 34 to 20 and all of that, right? So if you want to help us, every time you drive by that road, open up Waze and say there's a police officer there. And if every one of you will do that every day, you can watch, literally, you can watch the car traffic go down because the people that use Waze avoid traffic accidents and police and other things. So it's a little bit is the technology is in our world today. Okay, we're running a little over time. I appreciate everybody's patience, especially council. So we're going to move on to agenda item 3, which is closing remarks. I just want to say thank you very much. We're going to do a general public comments, by the way, but thank you very much for everybody who came out, everybody who's watching this, who's been heard on the internet, if I can. And, just encourage you one more time to please complete the survey. We're not going to pull the trigger on anything in the near future, but we really want to know kind of what the mood of the town is, what the mood of the citizens is. I think it's critically important. And so please, for you and for people that you hang out with next door, encourage people to fill this out so we can do it together. We want to make decisions based on as many people and their thoughts and opinions as we can, not just kind of make our best guess and get it wrong. So council, there's no close month.
No, sir, just, I appreciate everybody coming in, giving us the comments that we need, because once again, it's been said how much we do appreciate it, because that's what we all stood on, is we wanted to hear from the public. And so, we've got a lot of work. I do want y'all to be sure, understand, and have confidence in us that each one of the council, not only do we work on group projects, but we do take on some individual projects of our own as well to make this more improved as we go along. So thank you to everybody, and thank you to my fellow council folks as well. Tom, closing remarks?
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to general public comments. Oh, okay, so does anybody want to comment on our comments? Number 3, let's see, Scott?
Okay, it doesn't take a long time to do it, especially if you're not going to make any comments, so that is going to give better data. You don't need really, we all have to agree, but the more data you have, the better decisions you can make. So I would like to thank you all again for having this meeting, assembling the survey, collectively having the meeting, sitting here listening to all of my musings that I've been putting on, so I appreciate that. My closing comment would be, I don't know, we have a town, we have a zoning ordinance that can limit what the citizens can do. It's all good for us based on the map. We also, in the event in the future time, a property tax that was done once again, the limitations of the map make that incredibly unfair and biased. That calls into question to me the long-term revenue potential of the property tax because it's not fair. The sales tax that is collected is in no way near enough to properly maintain the roads over the long term. Whether we're talking about $250,000 a mile, $1 million a mile, or more, it's $120,000 a year. It's not enough to do that. And then the franchise fees that are collected from the trash and the electric company go to perpetuate the town itself. They're not providing services to the citizens. So the way I add that up, the citizens get limited, they may be taxed unfairly, sales tax can't maintain the roads, and franchise fees maintain the town, so I'm not sure where the citizens benefit from this. So what are we sustaining and for what purpose? And that's where I'm going to end. So thank you all.
Thanks, Josh. Let's see, on item 3, Kelly Smith, Kevin, Tara, and Robin. Kelly? Kevin? And Tara? Robin? Thank you for that. Tom was just asking if we're going to do a formal presentation back to the town. Yes, we will. We'll do it at a meeting, but we'll also do it on the website so that people will be able to you won't be able to get back to who said what. You'll be able to get to the data, right? How many people are working. And we're hoping that it's a meaningful number, right? The percentage that represents the airport. Okay, we're going to wrap up on the general public comments. And I think we have the same list of people here. We have Ken Scott, general comment. Okay, he had a general comment. Shelley? Thank you. Robin? Paul? And then after that, after Robin, Tara, Alan, and Robin.
I'm Robin Gold. And 2726. I enjoyed coming and listening. The problem I had tonight was a lot of the people that came up should have been in general comments, not dragging on section 3, section 6, section 7, because it didn't have to do with that. It had to do with 2, 4, on what they were commenting on. I would just wish they would sit and listen. If they have a question that's gone past, wait to the general comments and comment. It would make the meeting a lot shorter. But thank you guys for all you do.
So let's see, Tara, and then Alan, and then Robin.
For those maybe who are new to the area, I think it's important to revisit the fact the reason that we are a town is we had trail encroaching upon us. We also had a thoroughfare plan that was trying to make a 6-lane highway on 249, and we had absolutely no say in that matter. And so as a town, we actually have a say. And so we're forging our own future, and I would encourage us also to consider, we have, 2 retail businesses in town. I mean, I think my companies alone, are a good portion of that budget because I have 1 or 2 businesses in town. But, there could be a few more, and that could grow our town revenue. So,
And also those are home.
well,
And also the last person wanted to,
so there, I just, there are people who want to do a lot of top businesses in town, and that could be a significant source of sales and use tax revenue to the Justice Department.
Robin?
But like earlier, I just want to thank y'all for doing the survey, having the public hearing, so we can all, voice our opinions on it. I think honestly, for people that don't understand municipality, it's just the best way for them to learn how things work. But I do really, like, I truly appreciate all the work, the time that y'all put into it. And, you know, I hope I really look forward to the presentation for the answer to the fact on the survey and what you are kind of going to do with that information. So other than that, I just, of course, enjoy being here, living in Poultry. I've been here now for 13 years, Folks been here for 26. But, I mean, it's just so nice that we need to come home to our quiet little country town. And so, and honestly, I believe that if we had more businesses that would help the revenue, but I'll be honest with you, I like the fact that it takes me about 15 minutes to get to Plymouth, 20 to Terrell, and 28 to Russell. It's nice to have the separation. And where I live, half the time the internet doesn't work, so it's nice to have the distance. So I just thought that was fun.
Okay, just one informational deal, a business in the town that generates $500,000 in sales, generates $7,500 in revenue. So it takes a pretty substantial business to start generating revenue on multiple small businesses.
Okay, two last comments to me quickly. One, just, we've said this before, but I just want to make it clear, the council and mayor are not privy to the, survey information. We all agree that, Deputy Secretary Moore was going to be the collector of it, so she's the one that collects it and put it together, and we'll all see it together at the same time. And I just want to wrap on, you know, for those of you who maybe think this is a loaded meeting or something, the long-range plan that this council, not this one necessarily, probably the next one will come up with, could be to just leave everything alone. I mean, that's a possibility. We don't have any underlying motives, at least this group doesn't, that we want to build a park or a factory or whatever. So the long-range plan could be, hey, we surveyed the community, or we think, you know what, we're going to deal with roads being a little rough, and we'll just do the best we can, because that's good enough, right? It keeps the feel of our community, keeps the realtors out, keeps the development out, and that's it. So I don't know where we're going to land on this, what your input is important to us. So thank you very much for being here. The meeting is adjourned.